Yo, what's good, YouTube, man? It's Gary with the Fan TV, man. Back after the video of the content. If you go smash that like button at the content of this channel. Go and subscribe, man. Look, so it's been a couple of days since I talked to y'all, right? The Ravens have finished up the last day of the last day of training camp that was open to the fans a couple of days ago. I didn't really talk about that on the video, but I guess you get a quick synopsis about that. They said Zay Flowers was the star of the show. He was targeted all practice, made a bunch of catches, a bunch of plays, right? Not surprising there. He's going to be the Ravens' #1 receiver entering the season. Expect a big year 2 from Zay Flowers, right? Okay. Now, as far as today, right? The Ravens finished up their game versus the Falcons. I want to give 3 standout performers for the game, right? And then talk about just a little bit overall thoughts about the game in general, right? Okay, so we're going to start off with the standout performers. And I think that there's been one guy throughout the first 2 weeks of preseason, right, that's been the best player for the Ravens in the preseason so far, and it really hasn't been anybody else close to him, right? And that's been Trenton Simpson, okay? So the Ravens' second-year linebacker has been, to me, like I said, unequivocally the Ravens' best player, offense or defense, in the preseason so far this year, right? And that's probably the best news the Ravens could have, right? Trenton Simpson didn't get a lot of play last year, right? Because Patrick Queen was here, Pro Bowl linebacker, good linebacker, now going on to Steelers, whatever, right? But when the Ravens drafted Trenton Simpson, the idea was always, man, I made a video when the Ravens drafted him. I mean, I think a part of the thumbnail says Patrick Queen replacement, right? We knew that this was his path. We knew that this is something that he was going to have to be, right? And in year 2, he looks good in the preseason, right? So I'm not going to downplay that at all, right? I'm going to be very, very excited about that because he only really got played in that last regular season game, like I said, right? And he played well in that game, right? But besides that, we haven't seen him, right? Throughout OTAs, throughout mini camps, all of that, Trent Simpson has been good. Throughout when the pass came on, he's been great. All right, and that's great to see, right? So last week he had 11 tackles in the first of the game versus the Eagles, right? This week it's not nothing that jumped with the stat sheet or anything like that. I think he only had I got it right here. He only had 2 tackles, but he didn't play that much. I think he might have played maybe most of the first quarter, maybe the whole first half, something like that. But when you saw him play that first 2 drives of this game, he's electric to the football. He's fast. He's physical. He does everything 100 miles per hour, right? He's the kind of linebacker that you want to have next to Roquan Smith, right? Roquan can be the guy to get everybody lined up, this and that. And Trenton Simpson is going to be the guy to go hunt, hit, all of that, right? They count many of his games perfectly, right? But also the Ravens have kind of been giving him a crash course in leading the defense as well. Because last game he wore the green dot. I would assume this game he also wore it as well for when he was in the game, right? So for me, that's a big development. The fact that Trenton Simpson, a guy that the Ravens are going to be dependent on this year, has played well in the preseason. Yes, he's playing against guys that he's not going to see in a regular season, and that's cool, right? But what's worse, right? What would have been better if he dominates this competition, or he goes against this competition doesn't look as good, right? You want him to dominate this competition, and to me, he's done that, right? So I'm very, very impressed with Trenton Simpson. I'm glad that he has looked the way he's looked, and to me, he's on target to have a big regular season. Especially when you're going to have better defenders around him. Your Roquans, your Kyle Hamiltons, your Matabikes, all of these guys are going to be around him now. So that play that he was doing with guys that he wasn't going to play with, now he's just going to elevate a little bit even more, right? So to me, that's big news right there for the Ravens. So the Ravens really have a solid linebacker too, right next to Roquan Smith, which is what I always thought Trenton Simpson could be. That was the hope. He's realizing that hope so far in preseason, right? So I don't think we're going to see him in the last preseason game of the season, just because we don't see a lot of guys in general. And honestly, once I saw him play the first drive of this game, I was like, I don't need to see him anymore in general. He's ready for week 1, right? So I'm glad to see Trenton Simpson out there making plays, right, to the football, okay? First drive, I think he had a quarterback hit. Next drive, he's blowing up plays in the backfield, run play in the backfield. Like he's a missile to the football, right? So love everything Trenton Simpson does so far. All right. Second guy, I've given him enough criticism, so I got to give him the praise when he plays well. And that's Josh Johnson, man. Josh Johnson today, 11 for 11, 120 yards, and a touchdown, right? 142 quarterback rating, all right? So, 158 is the perfect. So he wasn't that far from a perfect quarterback rating, right? So Josh Johnson We, as Ravens fans, have been talking a lot about backup QB options. I saw Justin Rebeck mention Tyler Heineke, who was starting for the Falcons in this game. But, the Falcons obviously drafted Michael Penix. So, the Rebeck mentioned that, hey, maybe the Ravens see Taylor Heineke and they bring him over, right? If he gets cut from the Falcons, right? There's been talk about Ryan Tannehill. There's been talk about a bunch of different guys, right? I see somebody mention that PJ Walker is the third string quarterback. I can't remember for what team, but that if he gets cut, Ravens might be interested in him, right? So there's been an abundance of talk about guys where a backup quarterback option could be needed, right? I am still not the biggest Josh Johnson fan. He's okay. He does everything, okay, right? But this game, he needed to play well, and he did exactly that, right? I can't be on him. I can't say anything bad about him in this game because this game he was on time, on target. The Ravens worked a lot more quicker passing game for him this game, and he delivered it, man. He had a beautiful strike to Tyler Wallace over the middle of the field. I thought Tyler was going to score on that play, but he came up short at like the 2 or 3 yard line, right? Josh Johnson finishes off with a passing touchdown on that drive, right? So Josh Johnson did exactly what you want somebody to do who's trying to redeem themselves for, let's just say, suboptimal play, right? That's in preseason, that's in training camp, right? Because even leading up to the preseason game, he was still throwing interceptions in practice, right? Darius Washington and a couple other guys picked him off this week, okay? So it's not like it's been the cleanest week for him overall, but he came to this game versus the Falcons and played really well. So I gotta mention that, right? All right. Last guy that I want to give out the standout performance to, the third guy right here, is David Ojabo, right? David Ojabo is going to be somebody that the Ravens are going to depend on heavily this year, and they're going to need him, right? If he stays healthy, he's going to be out there on the field a lot for the Ravens, right? And today he had a really good game, right? He had a couple. I think he had 1 or 2 QB hits. He set the edge really nice in the run game. He hit one of the Atlanta Falcons tackles with a beautiful spin move, got a hit on Taylor Heineke as he was delivering the football, caused the incompletion on that play, right? So, which led to a missed field goal. Because the Falcons field goal kicker, Young Wayne Cool, missed like what 3 or 4 field goals today. So, yeah, I love what he did today, Ojabo. This was his day. This was his first time he's been medically cleared to play in a game, right? He ramped up in practice earlier this weekend. He had multiple sacks this week. He had a strip sack this week. And now you take it over to the game. He's doing the same kind of things in game, right? The Ravens are going to need him right off the bat, week 1, ready to go. And he looks like he's going to be able to contribute right away. So that's probably some of the best news the Ravens could have got in terms of their outside linebacker room, right? The edge depth on this team is still a little bit lacking. So, but Ojabo being healthy and ready to go is a massive key for this team, right? So, with Odafe Oweh having what Zach Orr described as his best training camp yet by far, David Ojabo coming on strong, Kyle Van Noy still being a good player, right? They're going to need some young guys to step up. Adisa Isaac played today. I thought he did well in little spurts. He got hurt at the end of the game. Hopefully he's okay. It was nothing serious. I don't know. Hopefully it wasn't nothing serious. All right, so the Ravens are going to need a lot of help at edge. They thought it was depending on guys like Malik Ham, who got injured early in this training camp, right? So Ojabo being healthy is very, very key for this team. And if he is, he could be in line for a massive season, right? So, because he looked good today, okay? So those are my 3 standout performances from the game. Now, just some overall thoughts about the game in general. I like what Anthony Miller did out there. Caught like 3 passes in a row. He was like a solid veteran wide receiver. I like what Dayton Wade did out there, right? Double move, touchdown, great route, stop and go. Lost the defender by, separation of about 10, 15 yards. You know what I'm saying? So that's great. He continues to make plays. There's no reason why Dayton Wade doesn't have a shot to make this team, especially if he's going to do special teams, right? He has a legitimate case to make this team, right? So I like that. On the defensive side of the ball, right? Bo Braid, safety. He had a pick. I think they ended up calling it a drop, right? But he's always around the football. He flies to the football. So that's the kind of plays you want to see in the safety, all right? Now, I think the only thing from this game that was concerning was the play of the offensive line, right? The play of the offensive line wasn't good, okay? For large stretches of the game, right? Voorhees at left guard got beat on the play. It was really probably his only really bad rep of the game. I had to watch it again. But he got beat pretty soundly. I think it was on the first drive of the game. He got beat pretty soundly, but he's been pretty good pretty much all preseason so far. Only 2 games of preseason and in training camp, he's been pretty good. So, you know, nobody's going to be perfect, but he got beat pretty soundly right there. Ben in Cleveland, snap over the head of Josh Johnson, leading to a turnover. Couple of bonus assignments for Lele and things like that. So the offensive line has to get better. They have to be more technically sound. And they got a couple weeks to get it together, right? That's just the reality of it, right? But when you're starting 3 new guys on the offensive line going into the season, you're gonna have to live with some growing pains, and the Ravens will have to live with that, right? I don't think it's gonna stop the Ravens from winning any games, but there are probably gonna be some rough moments, and we're gonna have to live through that. All right. So, but that's my thoughts of the game, man. The Ravens won the game 13-12 versus the Falcons, right? Now they move on to the final preseason game versus the Green Bay Packers. The Ravens will have some joint practices with the Packers, so that'll be some really good action for the ones. Lamar Jackson, both the Zays, Isaiah Likely and Zay Flowers. Mark Andrews, all those guys to get practice against a real defense other than themselves. They've been going against the same defense for forever. So that'll be some good run. We'll talk about that when that happens. But that's my thoughts on the game. Let me know if you have any standout performers. If you want to talk about the guys I talked about, drop it in the comments. If you have some other people you want to talk about, drop it in the comments, man. But it's Gabriel, Fan TV. I'm out.